Welcome to a special edition of Missing 411 News, a factual news source that will turn your head with its true revelations. Hang in there. I'm Dave Paulides, Canada Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for our video page, and you're going to get some news today that will turn your head. And I'm not going to give opinions, this is going to be the facts. So hang in there. This is going to be revealing. First bit of news, August 15th, the Gerrish family was found just outside Yosemite National Park in a location called Devil's Gulch. All three of the family members deceased. The dog was deceased. Very peculiar situation. Now, where's Devil's Gulch? Let's look at this. This is the western entrance to Yosemite National Park, right there. This is Devil's Gulch. 8 air miles to the front entrance of Yosemite. This is El Portal. So, very close. Now, what happened to the family? That is a very good question, and not ready to answer it right now because the autopsies haven't come back. But let me give you some information. I've responded to calls before where people had carbon monoxide poisoning, and you can get that in a car. If you have a bad muffler in a car, it can come up through the floorboards, and it can cause you to be tired, weak. But to have all 3 adults and a dog drop dead in close proximity to one another on a trail is almost unheard of, because poisoning takes a different time on each person's system based on size, health, how good a shape you're in, your aerobic capacity, your blood and alcohol and oxygen saturation that you may have in your body. All these things affect it. So people die at different intervals. And to have 3 people all in the same area, never heard of that. Including a dog, never heard of it. So, have to wait and find out, but the location and the circumstances, strange. News reports were saying they were handling it as a hazmat situation. Possibly poisonous gases coming out of a mine nearby. Again, I've never heard of that either, so have to wait and see. Now, the news this week, you're being distracted. And it's a big distraction. What's going on in Afghanistan all of a sudden took everything that's happening on the southern border right off the front pages. Did you realize that? Now, it's a disaster what's going on in Afghanistan for all the people in that country. If you know something about the Taliban, then you know that they don't believe in strong women's rights. And if you understood what they did to women and how they abuse them, then you'll know why the people, and specifically the women in that country, are just scared to death. And if you watched any of those news with the people hanging onto the planes as they're leaving, think about what it would take for you to do something like that. You would have to know that something very disastrous is coming. So, but what happened there took the southern border issues completely away. You're not even hearing about them anymore at all, which is troubling, to say the least, to me, because I heard a phrase that really hit home to me: intellectual agility. Do you have the intellect to bend back and forth, absorb factual data, and then apply it? That agility is key in truly understanding world and national issues. So intellectual agility, remember that. MSN and Politico had a statement that they stated President Obama said, this is the quote, don't underestimate Joe Biden's ability to F something up. It was on MSN. Just a quote. Now, let's think about something. Are you watching a channel that's showing interviews of southern border sheriffs? Are you? If you aren't, you're watching the wrong channels. Now, governments put a lid on the head of different agencies, head of the Border Patrol, head of Department of Homeland Security, etc. They are mouthpieces for the government. They say what their leader wants them to say. And if they don't say it, guess what? They're not there anymore. So, city police chiefs are controlled by a mayor, a city council, or a city manager. And if those people don't like what the police chief says, they're fired. They're gone. These are just the facts. What about a sheriff? A sheriff is elected by us. They can't be fired by anybody. They can be impeached, I guess, by the citizens if they don't like what they're doing. But in general, the sheriff is concerned just about one thing: the residents of the county he serves or she serves. And there is the important issue. Second point, if you aren't watching a channel that has interviews with association presidents, Border Patrol Association president, Police Officer Association president, then you're not hearing another side of the story. Because those association presidents have essentially given up being promoted within the ranks of their organization and have decided to just be the spokesperson for the rank and file members of that group. Thankfully, there are those people, because otherwise you wouldn't hear what's going on behind the scenes. And if your channel that you're watching doesn't have these people on, you're watching the wrong channel, because you're hearing what's really happening at the border, in the counties, etc. These are important issues. And if you think you really know what's going on, nope. Not if you're not watching these people, because the mouthpieces for the government are getting on the big NBC, ABC, CBS channels all the time. And they're feeding you propaganda. They're feeding you what they need you to hear and believe. Really. Don't become somebody who believes everything these people say. Please. Start opening up and watching other channels that show interviews with these people. Now, I saw 3 interviews with 3 different sheriffs over a week time span on the southern border. Each one of those sheriffs talked about a complete catastrophe going on, saying that the border patrolmen they had there last year aren't there because they're babysitting migrants at their station. They're not in the field. And the few they have in the field are chasing massive numbers of people crossing the border. And they stated that the people crossing the border are being escorted by known smuggling groups, known narcotics groups from Mexico. Now, why is that important? This is really interesting in the explanation I was given. If the narcotics organizations in Mexico control the smuggling and the movement of people across the border, then this all makes sense. Let's say they get 20 migrants together and they all want to cross and they pay them $1,000 to cross. And they say, yeah, this avenue right here is safe. You cross here. And they put 20, 40, 50 people across right here. And the Border Patrol sees that. They've got to assign 5, 10 border patrolmen, all of a sudden everyone from that district has to go to that location. And what does that do? That opens up the other side of the district to what? Movement of narcotics, movement of terrorists that have paid a pretty fee to cross. Uh-oh, you're hearing something you haven't heard. Terrorists. Yeah. Now let me make that clear. I didn't say it, but somebody else did, and here's who. On August 17, 2021, ex-Border Patrol chief who retired August 14th stated, he called immigration just a cover for massive amounts of smuggling going across the southwest border. It also created a national security threat because of the number of known or suspected terrorists crossing into the United States. Rodney Scott, former head of the Border Patrol, retired a few days ago. Now, he couldn't talk while he was in charge, but he can talk now. Customs and Border Protection officials told Congress in March that 4 people, 3 from Yemen and 1 from Syria, on the terror watch list have been arrested at the border since October 1st. They said those 4, but they didn't say any more because they were told not to. Key point. You gotta understand the wording. They didn't say that was the only terrorists that were caught. No. The reason those names got out is because somebody leaked them. In July, border officials stopped 212,000 illegal immigrants trying to cross the U.S. border, for the highest total in 21 years. In June, there were 188,000. CBP also reported there have been more than 1.1 million illegal border crossings already in 2021. Why is that important? So, where I live about 70 miles from the Canadian border. And in our cities, Whitefish, Columbia Falls, Kalispell, we see border patrolmen in their vehicles every day. I love them there. They're great men and women. And they're law enforcement people. More law enforcement people around, the better. And a lot of these people are senior because they don't want to work on that southern border, and they moved up. And they've got a lot of friends down there. And they live in our community. They're really, really solid people. What's going on is a catastrophe. Why? And here's the key point. Yeah, we caught 200,000 or more in the last month. But the Border Patrol calls them getaways. What are getaways? People they don't catch. Remember, you put 50 people in on this side of a region, get all your Border Patrolmen going over there, and then you put through 5 or 6, say, drug smugglers or terrorists that are paying a huge fee to get across, and they need to get across safely. How many of these getaways every day? 1,000. Those are the Border Patrol statistics. Look it up. 1,000 getaways every day. What does that mean? Well, since February of this year, that would mean almost 160,000 getaways have gotten into the country. At least, maybe 250,000. Wow. Now, do you think all those are good people? No. As the chief of the Border Patrol said, a lot of them are terrorists. Now, with Afghanistan turning into a terrorist country, with the Taliban taking over, and with September 11th on our doorstep, I am very concerned about our country because nobody's looking out for us right now. The Border Patrol can't because they're shorthanded. They're babysitting the migrants. They can't watch the border. The southern border is wide open. So who's coming across? Nobody knows. And remember, all of these cities that want to defund the police, think about that. What a mixture of absolute catastrophe to happen. Now, When police jurisdictions get defunded, the first thing that goes, the last thing to go is patrol, meaning the people you see driving around on the roads. First thing that goes is all your specialized units, intelligence, vice, narcotics. Those are the first to go. Because you got to have patrol functions. You got to have people responding to crimes. So when they defund the police, they know that there's no more investigations going on, or far fewer investigations going on. And that is really scary. I'll show you a little Border Patrol graph off of their website, okay? So this right here, the blue line, that is this year. That is 2021. And that's Southwest land border encounters by month. Over 200,000. And these are the previous 3 years. Now, so far this year, 1.33 million have been encountered. That's quite a number, folks. When you got 458,000 last year, by the end of this year, it'll quadruple that number. A hugely important statistic. Border Patrol. Criminal non-citizens of the U.S. encountered at the southern border. Criminals that they've apprehended. 8,691 so far to date. All of last year, 2,438. This number by the end of the year will be 5 or 6 times that number. Should we be worried? Well, if those statistics don't bother you, I'm concerned. If you live in a border state, you ought to be concerned because these people are in your community. And I hear from people all the time that live in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California. You are writing to me and you're saying, Dave, you keep talking about this because nobody's listening and nobody's paying attention. And it seems like people have headphones on and they're listening to some rock station and they're not listening to the facts. I listen to rock stations too. But the reality is, this is serious stuff. And it's going to impact our country for years to come. I'm concerned about what our administration is doing to our country. The next thing in the news, mental health. I've talked about it a lot. Now, this is from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, mental health issues, teen mental health during COVID. I'm going to read you the article. Disrupting school and interactions with peers. The pandemic has left teens with stress, anxiety, and other mental health challenges. Despite the pandemic, you were able to collect data from a 6-month follow-up survey completed by nearly 300 students. We asked if there have been any changes in their life due to the pandemic that created stress and problems for them, and whether they relied on specific skills to deal with those issues. Well, over 50% of the students reported that the pandemic and response has created problems. A little more than 25% of the students said they had experienced a great deal, and 30% a moderate amount, as well as stress and problems. A subset reported a great deal or moderate increase in depression. Folks, to me, this is part of the pandemic issue. The students being isolated, the students wearing masks, not being able to see faces, not being able to communicate with their friends. This is huge. I wish I could say this, but I won't because I'll probably be taken down for it, so I won't. But friends, look to the future in the next 5-10 years. When different institutions look back on this and see what the studies say it did to our kids. Please. NAMI, a group I talk about all the time, finally came out with how to protect your mental health during the COVID virus outbreak. Here's what they said. Maintain a routine. If you're not used to working from home, you may find the transition challenging. Creating a new teleworking routine will help you get into the right mindset. Find more productive ways and keep the boundaries between work and home from blurring. It may be tempting to work into the night, sleep in, and log onto your computer from your bed. This is not a good idea. Instead, stick to a regular bedtime and waking schedule. Shower and dress in the morning and keep normal working hours if you're not required to be on call. If you don't have to put on a suit, but wearing casual Friday work clothes instead of sweats will serve as a cue to start the workday. Designate a specific work area. Number 2, take reasonable precautions, but don't go overboard. Use only reliable sources of information to inform and make a plan for your health habits. As hard as it is, it's important not to give into impulsive or compulsive behaviors. This is especially important if you have OCD or health anxiety. Follow the rules you've made in advance so you don't let anxiety dictate your behavior. 3, find ways to get going. Now more than ever, you need to tend to your own health. Practicing sound mental hygiene can help boost your psychological immunity. If you're prone to depression, you might be finding it harder to get out of bed in the morning, motivate yourself to accomplish chores, or get started on a work project. Behavioral activation, the technical term for get going. Exercise is an excellent stress reliever and mind booster. The gym may be closed, but you can go out for a brisk walk as long as you keep your distance from others. You can also practice yoga at home and even work out virtually with a personal trainer. 4, try not to fixate on sleep. The changes in your usual schedule coupled with anxiety can wreak havoc on your sleep. If you're resting, try not to stew about your sleeping. Staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. will just create a cycle of worry and insomnia. If you find yourself lying in bed wide awake for more than 15 minutes, get up and change the mental channel by watching TV, reading a book, or listening to music. You can also listen to a guided meditation available on YouTube or on one of the many meditation apps such as 10% Happier, Headspace, or the UCLA Center for Mindfulness. Keep in mind, however, that you are not meditating to try to fall asleep. Having sleep as a goal will likely backfire and cause more anxiety. Instead, you can use meditation to notice what is going on in your mind and body and observe your thoughts rather than get caught up in them. 5, stick to consistent meal times. Rather than stress snacking throughout the day can also help you maintain your mental and physical equilibrium. Nourish yourself with healthy foods. However, it's also perfectly fine to build in some comfort foods like freshly baked cookies. Now is not the time to start a restricted diet. 6, follow your regular mental health treatment plan. Make sure you have an adequate supply of medication and take it as prescribed. Continue with therapy appointments. Many practitioners are now offering teletherapy, either by phone or video, to comply with social distancing. Practice mindfulness and acceptance techniques. Whether you use meditation, yoga, or prayer, focusing your attention on the present moment rather than ruminating about catastrophic, uncertain future can help you manage your distress. If you tend to compound your negative emotions with a cascade of negative thoughts, mindfulness training can be helpful in tempering those emotions. One good introductory resource among many is Mindfulness, an 8-week plan for finding peace in a frantic world by Mark Williams and Danny Penman. The UCSD Center for Mindfulness also has a free guided meditation and useful information about this practice. Finally, 8, be kind to yourself. A vast body of research conducted by the psychologist Kristen Neff and colleagues has shown the value of self-compassion for coping with emotional challenges and adversity. To ease feelings of isolation, acknowledge your struggle with kindness rather than self-judgment, and recognize that millions of people worldwide are sharing your experiences right now. The time is challenging for everyone, but you don't need to compound the difficulties by neglecting your mental health. If you follow these suggestions, you can face this crisis. You may even come out of it stronger at the end. This is a a graph from KFF, share of adults reporting symptoms of anxiety and/or depressive disorder during COVID. So, ages 18 to 24, 56.2%. 25 to 49, 48.9%. 50 to 64, 39.1%. Adults 65 or up, 29.3%. Now, I know I have a lot of teachers out there that watch because I hear from you as well. Be mindful of your students. And right now, I know that a lot of students in the last year and a half, way more than normal, have mental health issues. And way more than normal have taken their lives. You are not hearing about it. I hear about it. How do I know it's true? Well, I've stated this in a previous video. I had a long talk with a deputy sheriff here in Flathead County. He said the suicide rate had gone off the chart. That was confirmed by my grief counselor, who told me that suicides in the county have skyrocketed. So there's 2 data points for you. And then I've also heard from others, like I did when I was in LA County, that suicides were off the chart. What does that mean? That means mental health has affected us greatly during this COVID period. Our government doesn't want to acknowledge it. Now, if you haven't talked to a loved one or a relative in a few days, check in with them. Keep in touch. Talk to your kids more. Maybe, and I know some parents are just so afraid to even bring this up, but there isn't any mental health group in the world that'll say, oh, don't talk about this with the kids. Not true. Just a passing conversation, say, hey, I heard that there's a lot of kids that are having mental health issues, and some kids have actually taken their lives. Have you heard of this in your school? Are there a lot of mental health issues going on? How are you doing? Yes, key conversations to have. To ignore it and pretend it's not there is ridiculous. It's there. Kids talk about it, and kids are having trouble right now. I am praying right now that we do not go to the lockdown that New Zealand just went through. The head of New Zealand, and I put this on my Twitter, David Paulides, the Canada Missing, locked down the entire country over one COVID test. Positive. That's why it was initially locked down. One positive test. 5 million people locked down. Unbelievable. They didn't talk about the death rate. They just had one positive test. Now, I know that the government officials in the United States are watching New Zealand, Australia, and Canada. And they're looking for the response in those countries from their citizens about how we are going to move forward. And if you watched how France responded to the vaccine passports, New York just said that they're going to go to vaccine passports. How are we going to respond? Are we going to sit back and take it? Are we going to allow businesses to be decimated? I pray that's not the case. I hope that our government understands that this has destroyed our country for 1 year. We can bounce back. But then we have another issue. It's crime in the inner city. With police officers not being supported, they're leaving those big city police departments. They're going to small jurisdictions where they know the people want them there. So that means that those inner city areas don't have as many police officers as they did before. If If you haven't followed it, look at the state of Washington. They came out with a set of new laws that police officers have to follow. And it essentially stripped them of the ability to chase suspects. It stripped them of their ability to use force in certain areas of the law. I can guarantee, if I was a police officer in Washington and I couldn't chase somebody who I thought was a criminal, it means I can't do my job. I'd be leaving. Now, I know many of you great men and women in Washington are locked in by your retirement, and yet that retirement doesn't move with you, so you're kind of locked in to stay there. Life's bigger than that. There are many jurisdictions in this country where we'd love to have the good men and women in those departments being affected like this. I'm sorry for the people that live there, but you need to get out. You need to get out now, because your crime is going to go through the roof. Because criminals listen to the news too. I'm disturbed today. I'm disturbed because I love our country. I love it a lot. It's given me great opportunity. And I call this an opportunity right here talking to you. Last thing I'm going to say. When I was in college, well, first of all, when I was in high school, I took speech and debate. And I actually went on several weekend trips with the team to compete against other high schools. And when I got to college, I was at Berkeley, and I was taking a political science course, and one of our assignments in this class was to break into groups and take a position pro-democracy and pro-republic, USA, or pro-socialism, Venezuela, Cuba, and I took pro-democracy. And the instructor, I have no doubt in my mind, he had to have been a communist, but he walked a fine line, but he let his thoughts be known to our class many times. And I was one of the presenters in our group. And I centered my talk on a few core things. First of all, opportunity. If you want to start a business doing anything legal, go do it. No one's going to stop you. And you want to make a lot of money? Work really hard. Be successful. Make the money. So that was one, opportunity in business. The second one was medical. Even if you are a laborer and you don't have a ton of education, you can go to the post office right now because they need employees, and you can get a job and you can get good medical benefits right now. Right now. So medical is available to everyone who wants it. It's whether you want to work for it. Now, at the time, I knew this because I had traveled to Canada many times in the past. And I had friends, and I do have friends right now in Canada, that have told me, because of hockey circles and business circles, that, and as an example, one of their family members was skiing and blew out their ACL in their knee. They went to Canadian Medical and they said it'd be 9 to 18 months before we could even operate on you. 9 to 18 months with a torn ACL. Well, these people were upper middle class, and they knew before this happened that the medical in Canada was like this. And they bought a US medical insurance policy. So what they did is they came across the border the next week, had an operation in the US, and went back to Canada. And friends, there's thousands of Canadians that do this. You just don't know about it. But that's Canadian medical. I have a really close person in my life, super close, that deals with the VA on a weekly basis. And they have to have detailed talks with the VA about medical issues all the time. I was actually privy to a couple of these conversations. The way the VA treats people is unbelievable. They hang up on them. This person I'm talking about had sent the VA certified copies of documents that they asked for with a signature required, and it was received by the VA, it was signed by the VA, and twice they lost the documents. Twice. That's just like the National Park Service when I sent in my film permit 1.5 years, 2 years ago. Oh, we didn't get it. Oh, but you signed for it. Yeah, that was the mail center. They must have put it someplace else. It's the way our government is. So, getting back to the debate, medical issues. If you want medical benefits, there's ways to get them by working for our government. You'll get them. And you'll get them quick. And that there's options within those systems for the type of medical benefits. Now, our medical is very costly in the United States. But if you have a medical insurance plan, you're not waiting 9 to 18 months for a torn ACL surgery. Not happening. So medical, it's another. Freedom of movement, another. Why do all of the people in Cuba think the USA is the place to be? Opportunity. Look at photos of Cuba today, downtown Havana. Look at the cars. All those cars are from the 50s and 60s and the 40s. They don't have hardly any new cars. And they do everything they can to keep those older cars running. This is a fact. Go talk to some of the Cuba people about their medical care. Yeah. See how good it is. Or how good is that country in Venezuela doing right now? Not too good. The USA has its flaws. I'm the first one to admit it. But you know what? We have what's called freedom of speech right now, to some degree. And we can't lose that. Because I'll defend your freedom of speech to say anything. Even if it's contrary opinion to me, that's fine. Because you know what? I know that if I went to a debate, I'm going to come prepared with one thing: facts. I'm not going to come with emotion. I'm not going to come yelling and screaming. And the people that you see online yelling and screaming and being rude, they don't have the facts. If they had the facts, put it to paper. Let's discuss the facts. Instead, certain groups will try to yell you down. They'll try to intimidate and bully you. I'm not trying to do that. I'm going to come with the facts. So in those debates about socialism versus democracy, versus what we have right here in the United States, the Constitution is not a perfect document. But it's the one location in the world that the most people want to come because of opportunity. And the treatment of people is fair. We have rules against treating people unfairly, and they are enforced. Maybe not enough, but we're trying. And we're a country that continues to look at itself to get better. And I'm one of those people that says, sure, the U.S. isn't perfect, but I don't know of any other country in the world that has the resources, the people, the environment, and the medical care that the USA has. And if you balance that all out, we're doing pretty good. Not all of those that I just named are a 9 or a 10 out of 10. But we're doing better than most. And when you think about other countries, crime in the streets, we don't want to get there. We need our law enforcement people. I love our law enforcement people and first responders. Without them, we would be crippled. Without our transportation infrastructure, we would be crippled. I've said this many times. Everything in our country moves at some point or another by truck. Without truck drivers, we're dead in the water. So, every truck driver out there, and I've heard from many of you, Dave, appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for being away from your family. Thank you for making the sacrifice. Thanks for safely moving our things across the country. First responders, medical personnel, doctors, physicians, nurses. Watch how in the future hospitals are going to talk about they don't have enough nurses. This is already starting right now. Pay attention to that because it's true. A lot of nurses are leaving the profession. And look into why. Why they're leaving these big institutions. It's going to hurt our medical groups in a big way in the future. So that's the news for today. I appreciate you being here. Please pass this around. And boy, I greatly appreciate you in the village for sticking with us. If you want to hear something else in the news someday, bring it up, send me a note on this video, and tell your friends. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. I am sure this video is going to get slammed. And so many people are giving me a thumbs down that I'll need those thumbs up to balance it up. Again, don't buy my books on Amazon. They're upwards of $100 a piece right now. They're ridiculous in price. Those are resellers trying to rip you off. Only buy them on our website. And the link is under the description of this video right here. Anyhow, thanks again. Be safe. Love your family. Keep them close.